Good morning, my Cafecito colleagues, my Cafecito crew, my extrovert therapist. Thank you for joining me today to be my therapist on Cafecito con Colon. We're glad you're with us. We are bringing the Aggie heat today. We've got Aggies in the house. Aggies en la casa. Right here at Casa Colon. Good morning, Dr. Lawrence Roybal and Joseph Valdez and Donna. Good to see you this morning. Welcome back. Gracias por venir. Wait till you meet Dean Phame Camarena. He is top shelf all the way. What a guy. Good morning, Dr. Lang. Good to see you this morning. Don Ernesto Martinez de Condado Santa Fe. Good to see you, hermano. Buenos días, le de Dios. You got it. Could be like Johnny Canales. You got it, man. Take it away. Vámonos. All right, all right, all right. All right, Mariachi Vargas, bringing it strong with Café Colon. All right, I think we're going to get started. Here we go. Good morning, and thank you for joining me on Cafecito con Colon on this beautiful Thursday, the 11th day of March, 2021. It is just a thrill to have you back with me. I'm just so excited that I haven't had to bump yesterday's show. We got two shows in a row now without any legislative hearings. Yesterday, we had the incredible Professor Emerita, the very first Latina ever to be admitted to Harvard School of Law from beautiful little territorial capital of New Mexico, Las Vegas, New Mexico, in Condado de San Miguel. She did a beautiful job yesterday. If you missed that episode of Cafecito con Colon, it's absolutely worth a watch. So make sure you go back and check that out. You will be enriched by her stories, her journey. She is a natural lecturer, and I gave her a lot of runway. People were surprised with how I was able to sit back, because I don't usually do a good job of sitting back and listening. Although I'll tell you, the reflection on my Lenten journey, one of the emails this morning was about listening. So I'm going to try and be a better listener. And my morning has been enriched a lot this morning already. I started with my walk this morning at 4:45. And then had my men's group at 6:30, 6:15, and then got on the line with Dean Phame Camarena. And I'm just telling you that in just spending 10 minutes with this leader, you can just tell he's got a fantastic disposition to execute on a job that is so important for the continued success of our people of New Mexico and those who are at NMSU. He's got just a wonderful, wonderful way about him, and I'm thrilled to have been able to meet him this morning for the very first time. I'm so glad we were connected up. And Dean Camarena, who likes to go by his first name, Phame. Phame, welcome to Cafecito con Colon.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for making time out of your busy legislative schedule for us. Thank you.
You bet, you bet. Well, I'm a proud Aggie, 1998 graduate. It took me a decade to get through that journey. I started in 1988 and then went through 1998 to get that degree. And finally, the president said, if we give you a degree, will you finally leave? And I said, yes, just give me the degree. And they gave me that degree in finance. And I was on my way straight to law school. And I always say this, it's absolutely true. One of the most important decades of my life was spent in Las Cruces and at NMSU. It's where I became a young man. It's where I had community embrace me in a particularly spectacular way. I lost my father as a teenager. When I was at New Mexico State University, I didn't have a single blood relative in the entire state. Was a teenager who had to bury his father, who died at 49. And I will tell you that my friends and the community there in Las Cruces really lifted me up. And whether it was Yvonne and Sonia, who allowed me to sleep on their couch when I didn't have a home to live in, a place to stay, or whether it was, you know, I have my screensaver here on. I pointed it out to you, Dr. Camarena. Let me just show our viewers here real quick. I always proudly have, most folks probably haven't noticed it, but back here, always by my side at my home office, is a nameplate that I got back over 20 years ago when I was the AS NMSU vice president. And my AS NMSU sisters and brothers were the ones who really propped me up when my father passed away. And people like Mark Shervanek and Barbara Hubbard, literally those folks put together the money so that I could afford to fly to Florida to bury my father. And but for those folks who stepped up, then I don't know what I would have done. And so that decade was a very powerful decade. It was also the decade where I started businesses, was in the Southern New Mexico Business Journal, car washes, the Aggie car washes with Larry Sheffield, who's a former regent of New Mexico State University, former state representative. And now Larry, and we're going to have him on Cafecito, but he did a phenomenal job creating a documentary with some of the things out of Alamogordo as it related to the Oppenheimer project and some things like that. And he's now an acclaimed documentary guy. But he and I did the Aggie car washes, and so many good memories in Las Cruces. It's where I opened a business with Larry called Go Cellular, and it's how I met my wife. She was a cellular wholesaler out of LA. I had a cellular business in Las Cruces. She made a joke about some time off. I said, come on out to New Mexico and I'll show you around, and the rest is history. And now we will be celebrating our silver wedding anniversary on August 10th, 25 years. So Las Cruces, and then my son was born, Memorial Medical Center. He was baptized and we were married at Holy Cross. And father just retired down there last year, I think, from Holy Cross. But so Las Cruces has a very special place in my heart. And the leaders that poured into me were leaders like Dr. President James Halligan, and at that time, Vice President William Conroy, who the Honors College bears his namesake. And so that's my not so smooth segue into just saying that I am really thrilled to be able to shine today's spotlight for Cafecito con Colon on a really important part of New Mexico State University, our land grant institution here in New Mexico. And that is its Honors College. And the Honors College, since its inception, has only had 3 deans. The former dean had a beautiful career and made a great impact in Las Cruces and Southern New Mexico and all the students that went through New Mexico State. But Phame has already started to make his strong impression, even during COVID. This is a man who's had to lead the Honors College during a time that we were not sure how we were going to deliver education, how we were going to stay connected with our student body, how we were going to make sure that students didn't really have that slide of a year. Of course, we didn't expect it to be a year. And today, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll post some links about it, but today is the anniversary of the World Health Organization in the United States here declaring this, the World Health Organization declaring it a pandemic. It's the anniversary of New Mexico's first cases of COVID. We thought the green chili, we were literally one of the last states. I remember making jokes around the 8th or 9th saying, man, that green chili is really keeping COVID away from New Mexico. We were the only state here in the Southwest that didn't have a COVID case. And then on March 11th, we identified 4 cases of COVID-19. So today's a day that will be special in terms of remembrance for many of us. We've lost so many New Mexicans. I last week had a horrible week of loss with losing 4 loved ones that made a difference in my life. Not all to COVID, but we know a lot of families are in pain, and March 11th is a day that we will all remember as being the day that COVID-19 began its treacherous impact on our state. But we'll also say that March 11th was the day after the Congress and passed a relief package that will have probably in many ways on New Mexico, this may have the deepest impact of any state in the union. And that's because of our children that are born into poverty in New Mexico. 8 out of 10 children are born into poverty in New Mexico right now. 80% of our children are Medicaid eligible the day they're born. I mean, poverty is pervasive. Everybody here that is a regular on Cafecito know my story, but Dean, I'm like you, a first generation college graduate. My father died with a dream that I'd be the first in the family to go to college and break the cycle of poverty. And I sit here all these years later, and I've lived his dream, and now I'm living my dream of living a life of service and gratitude and giving back to New Mexico. And today is my 801st day as the state auditor of New Mexico. They've all been awesome. And today is very special because I get to bring a connection to Cafecito that I don't think I've spotlighted even once. And I've been doing this show almost a year, almost every day, 6 days a week, since the pandemic began. I think my first episode was on March 23rd. And I haven't spotlighted my alma mater yet. NMSU's been spotlighted, or UNM's been spotlighted, but NMSU has been in my blind spot. And you all reached out and said, we've got a superstar at our honors college, and we'd love to have you meet him. And I'm glad that Ana Cordova did that and pulled it together and made this happen. So, I have spent a lot of time reflecting and talking this morning. And I think March 11th is just a heavy day for decompressing as we all try and wrap our head around the gravity of what we've been through for a year now. We never expected this to go for a year. We just, it's just unbelievable. And so let me just put up 2 or 3 links, Dr. Camarena. I always try and make sure that 9:15 is my hard break and I get to my guest by 9:15, but will you let me put up just a couple links and I'll be with you about 9:15? All right. And let's see here. What do I have? Let me start out with, interestingly enough, today is also a heavy day in history. March 11th, 10 years ago, and for people like Dr. Camarena and our age, it probably seems like yesterday. It certainly does for me. But 10 years ago was that day that we learned about the Fukushima nuclear disaster. It was the largest earthquake ever recorded in Japan. Massive devastation, a tsunami that I think took 15,000 lives, or some unbelievable number. It was more than 10 and I think less than 20, but that many lives. And they relocated over 100,000 people. Just a devastating occurrence. And that was 10 years ago already. It doesn't seem like that long ago. Let me give you a couple of USA Today links that I think were powerful. This is a photo. I don't know if anthology is the right word. I'm going to feel very insecure about words I used today with the dean of the honors college here on Cafecito con Colon. I'm gonna be very insecure about my vernacular today, Phame. So take it easy on me, okay, Phame?
Got it. Don't worry.
All right. So there's this photo spread in the USA Today of photographs, then and now, and you see airplanes then and now, you see amusement and beaches then and now. Very powerful contrast there. Then here's another kind of overview of some of the COVID-19, where we were, where we are. Then here's USA Today's marking the anniversary of 1 year under this pandemic. And then here's a great story. I thought it was a great story. I loved the photo. They did a photo of the Zoom call with our governor, our 2 United States senators, and our United States congressional member from the north, the 3rd congressional district, Teresa Leger Fernandez, as they talk about what that relief package is going to mean for New Mexico and for our state. And so I thought the Journal did a great job of that today. And then that I'm stuck on this website that has far too many pop-ups, but people are just throwing money at Because of Them We Can website. But this website that spotlights and highlights Black excellence, they did a beautiful job as we celebrate and honor Women's History Month. This year they showed this piece about NASA naming the Mars Perseverance rover the landing site after iconic Black science fiction author Octavia Butler. And that's a very cool story. And I thought you might enjoy that today. And then hear about Clarissa Shields. She is the first boxer to ever become a 2-division undisputed world champion. This woman looks fierce. Talk about fierce. We talk about our about to be Secretary of Interior, and her slogan, long before it became a cool thing to say, was "Be fierce." I've got Congresswoman Deb Haaland's bandana there, and it says "Be fierce." But this woman looks fierce, I'll tell you that much. Let me just also give you a heads up that tonight, 6 o'clock, the Santa Fe Art Institute, for all you very intellectual superstars out there, the Santa Fe Art Institute does some great stuff, but they're hosting an event tonight at 6 o'clock. I thought you might want to check that out. And then I wanted to also give you this report on the potential poverty reduction effect of the president-elect's economic relief proposal. You can kind of go through that. This child tax credit, unbelievable. It could be a game changer for New Mexico's economic landscape, particularly as it relates to children in poverty. A big deal. So I hope you'll take some time with that. Santa Fe Reporter always does a good job, and there's their link there. Let me end with the announcement here page of the dean's appointment back from the newsroom at New Mexico State University. And let me just say that Dean Camarena is a first-generation college student and a native Californian. He was selected to lead the William Conroy Honors College at New Mexico State University in 2020. I think it was in June. Is that right? June or so?
Yep.
So coming up on his one-year anniversary, we'll send you an anniversary card. But inspirationally, you've got a tremendous man of color who is a first-generation college student who is now leading the Honors College at New Mexico State. I think that in of itself sends a very powerful message to our next generation of excellence that's coming out of New Mexico. I will say that he was born in San Jose, California. He got his bachelor's degree in sociology from the University of California at Santa Barbara. Great Spanish colonial history in Santa Barbara. I am a huge Spanish colonial fan, art fan, former president of the Spanish Colonial Art Society, and Santa Barbara has incredible collectors there. We have great collectors in New Mexico, and probably the biggest group of Spanish colonial traditional artists in New Mexico. But Santa Barbara has some amazing collectors over there. Great community. He got his master's and PhD in human development and family studies from Pennsylvania State University. And he's got more than 15 years administrative experience, mostly as a director of the Central Michigan University Honors Program. So he is steeped in honors excellence, and why he was so wonderfully selected as our dean there at the Honor College. He also stopped at Purdue University, South Dakota State University, and now we're going to keep him for at least a decade down there at New Mexico State University. I always think a decade of leadership is a hallmark. And I think that I think that because as a young man, I remember sitting and having iced tea with Dr. Halligan, as I did so many times one-on-one. What a beautiful, he really was a mentor to me and an inspiration to me. But I remember him saying very early on in his presidency, he said, I'm going to do this for a decade and then I'm out, because leadership needs to change. And he did that. He led that university for a decade. And in a time over the last 20 or 30 years, we have seen such horrendous turnover in leadership at our institutions of higher learning, particularly at our flagship here in Albuquerque, and also, unfortunately, at New Mexico State University. It is so hard on staff and students and leadership and vision to have a lack of continuity at the top. And I know that I will say that President Carruthers, I think, or Chancellor Carruthers, I know that we've changed some fancy titles down there over time, provided a real steady hand because of his longevity in the community and in leadership at New Mexico State University. But it was exceptional. And Dr. Halligan did that. He did 10 years and he was out. And he had Dr. Conroy by his side. Just two incredible steady hands. I can't say enough about that. So we want you there for a while, Dr. Camarena, and I'll do everything I can to support you. He also served as chair of the Department of Human Environmental Studies there at the university on his journey to our honors college. And there's tons of things I could say about Dr. Camarena. He likes to go by Phame, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call him Phame. We're going to start out with asking him about a little bit about his journey. Maybe during this Women's History Month, you can pepper in a couple of women who've made a big difference in your life. I'm mostly only featuring women during Women's History Month, but you're the exception. because number one, I'm way overdue in spotlighting NMSU's excellence. And number two, because your team did a good job locking in a date for us. And I wasn't willing to give it up because I really did want to get to meet you today. So welcome to Cafecito con Colon.
Thank you very much. And, I appreciate the personal sharing too. I think it's one thing to talk about an institution and our mission. And we got to remember these are people, right? That in these institutions and in these programs that we coordinate are real live human beings who got vibrant lives, challenging lives. And that's really what makes honor special for me, just to be in all honesty. I appreciate my other fellow deans, but they don't get to spend time with students the way that I do. They don't get to know people one-on-one, real life students over coffee in the way that the honors dean does. And so I have the best job on campus. I am thrilled to be here. But I do want to share a story, and I'm happy to share a story relevant to that as well about an especially important woman leader who changed my life and who I think deserves special recognition. I want to talk about my journey into honors because it says something about how I think about what honors means, okay? So, I was a bright high school student. I always say that I was a slacker. I could do the work and get the grades, but I really wasn't trying. I was earning the grade. That was my goal, and whatever it took to do that. But I got into a college, and I have to be honest that I only applied to one school. Again, first generation college student, multicultural background, household that really didn't value education formally. I only applied to one school, but I made sure it was a prestigious school because I knew I was a good student, and that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Right.
And I got a little letter saying, "Hey, you qualify for our honors program. You should join it." And I can't even say I remember reading past the first paragraph. I'm going, "This isn't for me. There's no way." Number one, I wasn't sure how good I was going to be at college. Number one, and number two, I was a slacker kid to begin with, right? But I was intellectually curious, and I really was analytical, and I loved learning. Just the game of school wasn't my best, right? So I started and discovered in the first couple of weeks that I really didn't love the major that I was in. I could do the work, but I didn't have any passion. And I lost all my scholarships because if you're not taking classes for the scholarship you have, that's a problem. So I had to transfer schools. And when I transferred, I again got a letter from the university saying, "Hey, you should be in our honors program based on your record, and you should be in our honors program." And again, I can't even say that I finished the letter and away it went. And during my second semester of that year, I had been sitting in some classes and the content just clicked with me. It's like, wow, this is exciting. And I became a learner for the first time. I would say that's when I became really a university student, where I was I might still be sitting in the back, but I really was paying attention, and I would go to the professor's office hours, not to talk about the quiz or the exam, but to talk about ideas. And I was a rather non-traditional student, and I even dared my professor, "Could I do my class without looking at my grades? Because everyone seems so grade oriented, and would that be all right?" And I got pretty motivated, right? So my second semester, my professor comes to me and says, "Phame, I see you're not in my honors seminar this next term." And I said, "Well, I'm not an honors student," right? And he looked at me and he laughed. He goes, "You are an honors student. You're just not in the program yet." And the minute he said it, I understood what he meant. That comment changed my life because it changed my own identity and it changed suddenly access to resources. Yes, I took his honor seminar that next semester. Yes, I started working with faculty. Yes, I became an undergraduate teaching assistant. Yes, I started working on a research project with a professor. I mean, all of these things, I became a campus leader, all of these things because honor suddenly had become a part of my identity and somebody reached out and tapped me on the shoulder. And in a sense, that's what I do. I mean, I'm here to tap students on the shoulder. I'm here to tap students who are in high schools, to tap them on the shoulder and say, the university can be transformative. Yeah, you'll get a degree. Yeah, you'll get a job. That is not the important part of this. We can transform your life and you will transform the world for good. And when you see a student get excited and there's like a ring of truth to that where they say, "Yes, I want to be that person." Oh, that's the best. So my shout out, that was my first entry into the university. So thank you, Dr. Baldwin, for that. But Dr. Ann Peterson was my grad mentor and or femtor. And as I was leaving the university and applying to schools around the country and nation. You know, I had applied to Penn State, and and she wasn't one of the professors that I had noted as someone I wanted to work with. And I got a call from her and saying, you know, Phame, I welcome you to Penn State. I would love to have you be funded under me, and I will support and nurture you for 5 years or so until you finish your PhD. If you'll work on my research with me and help me do my work. I didn't know who she was. I didn't really understand the nature of her work. And she was studying things that didn't sound like a good fit for me. And then she explained, well, that's what I've been doing. But my next project is a perfect fit for who you are and the things you want to do. Will you come join me? And I appreciate the personal connection and the personal contact. At the time, Anne was the department head. She then became the dean. She became then the provost. She became the first deputy director of the National Science Foundation, the first woman and the first social scientist ever to be the deputy director of the National Science Foundation. And at every step of the way, Ann Peterson, Ann C. Peterson, and the provost of the University of Minnesota, the program director at the Kellogg Foundation, at every step where she would be making a transition, she would drag me along and say, you come to my meeting, you listen to my issues. And she would tell me honestly the things that she was wrestling with. And it profoundly impacted me. I mean, to have someone who could be so genuine and honest about the challenges that she was facing. And in the end, she said, of all the students that I've worked with, you will be the one that will become an administrator. You will be the one that is going to someday lead in some other way. And I stepped back and said, why do you say that? She said, because you're unwilling to stand for the craziness of the systems that are stuck and trapped. You just are unwilling to say, this is okay. You want to change it. And if you can fight the game inside, if you can play with the rules and push the boundaries, you can make a difference. And that's what I saw her do. So I love honors. Being the dean of honors at NMSU is a dream come true from a first generation college student who was tapped on the shoulder to join honors, kind of against my better judgment even, maybe. But she really helped me see the potential to make a difference and to be transformative. And she saw in me as well that it's not just about a job. It's not just about, the dean is not my job. This is my calling. This is my mission. I do what I do. In fact, I get paid too much. Please don't say that in some other kind of way. I don't earn that much, okay? But it's not why I do it. I do it because I believe that we can transform students' lives who will transform the world for good. Just like Dr. Baldwin tapping me on the shoulder and just like Ann Peterson yanking me out to Pennsylvania, where my life has never been the same. So I love honors. I have enjoyed my time at NMSU, and moving across the country in the middle of a global pandemic is not for the faint of heart, but I'm here for the right reasons, I promise.
I'm so glad. And we're going to keep you there for a while, Phame. Thank you for that. And I was able to find some great links, and I put those in the chat. If you want to learn more about Ann Peterson, you can check out the NSF feature there, or also the American Psychology Association, I think, Psychological Association. They have a beautiful feature about her. Dr. Peterson is featured there. And so you can learn a little bit more about that woman in history who really did break some great barriers and looks like a phenomenal trailblazer. So thank you for allowing me to spotlight her during this Women's History Month. So let's take a step back if we can. Two things I'd like to say, take a step back on. One, I want to hear a little bit more about kind of your journey and how it was that, you know, I know you said you were a pretty decent student, but still sitting in the back of the room. And being a first generation college student, I know that my parents had a dream that I go to college, but I'm not even sure that my dad knew when he talked about it. I'm not even sure, like, he didn't graduate high school. He said he made it through high school. He made it through the front door and through the back door, but never graduated. But yet he had this idea that he wanted me to go to college. But in terms of any structural support, even it had, you know, he lived, I mean, he wouldn't have known how to provide any structural support. Unlike my son, one generation out, this is where the story gets good, right? Like one generation out from NMSU believing in me and all the organizations that gave me scholarships and all the individuals who put a roof over my head and put food on my table so I could survive. One generation out, not only is the cycle of poverty broken for me and for my wife, but our son, one generation out, is a high school graduate from Albuquerque High who got a presidential scholarship to go to GW to study biomedical engineering. That's not a coincidence. Aleli and I understood some of the structural things that we had to put in place for him to enjoy success. And now it'll come naturally to him, but you didn't have maybe some of that because you were that first generation. So talk a little bit about that. And then also maybe the concept of an honors college, because not every university has one, and we're only 3 deans into ours down there at New Mexico State University. Tell us about that.
Yeah, one of the projects that I was working on before coming here, I had interviewed a group of people who had PhDs, but who were first generation college students, right? And so just kind of the question was, how does that happen, right? Without the structural supports, without the kind of human and social capital that we know makes a big difference, right? For normalizing educational aspirations and for aiming high, right? There's a common set of things, though. There really are. And I know we have this kind of mythology in our culture that, well, you pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. But in fact, of all of the people that I interviewed, remember, these are all people, I think 24 professors who had PhDs that were first generation college students. Everyone said, I didn't do it alone. I didn't do it alone, right? And so remember, in my story, I'm giving credit to Dr. Baldwin for tapping me on the shoulder, for Dr. Peterson, for Ann, for saying, one day I realized Ann always had these people from all over the place that we would wind up in the lab and she'd say, hey, Phame, could you help supervise this student? I have someone from China coming. Could you be a mentor for this person? I got someone, and oh, sure, that's right, And so I was always helping with all these people, and we kind of jokingly referred to them as strays. Like, where did she find these strays? I mean, they're always here. And as her assistant, I was always assigned, I met some world-class people that I didn't know were world-class people at the time, right? Just like, okay, I'm Ann's assistant, I will help, right? And then one day I realized my partner and I met, spouse, we met on Ann's research project. And one day we were chatting about that and we realized, we're strays. She picked us out too, right? I mean, we're joking about the strays, but we're the strays too. Mm. And in a sense, there's a truth. We don't do it alone. And it could be, if it's not family, then there's somebody else, right? And it doesn't have to be a single mentor. It doesn't have to be one person, but we don't do it alone. And in many ways, that's why, whether it's programs like our TRIO programs, where we're really targeting supports for students to make sure that they make it to the university and then are successful in that institution. But for me, it's how do we help aim higher and achieve? Sometimes we have a deficit notion that if a student is first generation, that they don't have the capacity. As you saw in your own experience, as I saw in my experience, I might have had disadvantage and challenge, but if somebody will give me that hand up, if someone will give me some of the structures so that I can step forward just a little bit more, it changes my identity. And in my research, that's what I found, is at some point in time, there's a hand up, I don't do it alone, but there's enough experiences where someone begins to believe in themselves and say, I get it. I am in my honors program at University of California, Santa Barbara. And again, I was tapped into honors. I was taking a class, and you could earn honors by taking a graduate level course, which is true here. You take a graduate level course, it counts for honors. And so I was taking a PhD class. There were 6 PhD students and 2 undergraduate honors students. And we're sitting here going, what have we gotten ourselves into, right? This is, and these are like grown human beings with families, and they're all working on their PhDs and their dissertations, and they were no smarter than us. The professor was clear. She, sat us down and said, you two are, don't worry, you two are if anything, you're less distracted. You get your reading done better. All right, you don't have all the background detail that these folks do, but don't ever let them intimidate you, because you're better students than they are right now. And so that sense of belonging in, believing in myself. So what do you think honors programs do? We try to help identify students not only that have strong records of past achievement, because remember, not everybody has the equal opportunity for that past achievement, but that also have evidence of academic potential, where you can see, I'm like the coach who's going out there scouring, looking for that best. And if you're competing in a small division with weak competition, it's hard to know just how good that basketball player is or that football player is, whatever the sport is, right? I'm looking for academic all-stars. But I'm looking for academic all-stars with the understanding that not everybody has the same preparation and background and opportunity. But if I can get them to the university and say, you know, I'm looking for something more. I want my university education to be something more. Then I can tap them on the shoulder and I can give them supports and instructors and encouragement, not just to retain them and not just to have them stay for the next year. If it's someone with strong academic potential, let's help them aim higher and achieve more than even they believe possible because they just didn't know. And that's what honors does. So in many ways, my own story, that is my story. That's what honors did for me. It helped me believe in myself. And yeah, I did an honors capstone research project and that I could do my own research and have a faculty mentor advise me as an undergraduate. And that's what we do here. So the idea, let's identify those students, help them believe in themselves, give them some structural support, and then give them some opportunities and challenges to say, do more with your education. And that's why, you know, I don't choose the marketing. So I see the Be Bold shape the future. I've been lots of places and, you know, the Be Bold is right. That's what we're asking students to do. Be bold with your education. Don't just jump through the hoops and check off the box. Do more.
Right. I love that. I love that. Don't just check off the box, do more. I appreciate that perspective and that quest for identifying excellence in others. And what a great, like you say, you know, you get the best job. And it's that opportunity for you to see individuals in a light that they don't even see themselves yet, but that you can identify they have the capacity to do it. And you said some other things that really resonated with me, especially after yesterday, because yesterday was a kind of a big moment for me because one of the former professors that was at the law school when I was there 20 years ago, and I was talking about my on the cusp admission. I was provisionally admitted to law school, had to complete a program in advance to see if I had what it took. And she was so quick to cut me off when I started talking about that. And she just was really awesome in the way she said it. I don't know that I'll be able to repeat it because it hit me like a freight train. No one had ever kind of tried to adjust my perspective. But she just talked about that my application had some other things in it other than academic that people were able to read and see that I had some potential to be excellent in terms of impact and in terms of service, and that, you know, data points in terms of the academic journey are not always the only things we can look at because structurally a lot of us aren't set up for success in those matters. You know, it's just like when I was this kid from Las Lunas High School who wanted to go to Harvard or Stanford because Jeff Bingaman had gone to Harvard and Stanford, and I wanted to be like that. And but no one told me at Las Lunas that I had to take some crazy test called the SAT. I was lucky that I took the ACT. So when I applied to Harvard, they didn't even bother sending me back a rejection letter. They didn't want to spend the 30 cents on the stamp. And that's a true story. But New Mexico State took me, right? Because that's your first generation. You know, you're going to go to UNM or New Mexico State because that's what's expected back then. Now we have these amazing programs like the TRIO program, like Enlace, that really create and support a pipeline for success with students like me, first generationers like you, can see themselves in a way that no one else has helped them believe that they can be or do things that no one else is telling them they can do them. And that's what I really appreciated. Some of the things you said, whether it was conscious or unconsciously, or subconsciously, subconsciously, you said that really sent a signal that, you know, academic excellence is really important, but a lot of times we have to put the structural tools in place so that we can have academic excellence for students who traditionally haven't seen themselves as being in that lane.
Well, and I want to again I appreciate your service to the state and the importance that represents. And again, at a state university, the land grant university, this really matters to me, right? That we have an honors college, and again, I would say I know the University of New Mexico, Highlands, Western, we all have honors, and I'm a big supporter of honors, just so you know. So admissions, of course, wants me to advocate for New Mexico State, but I'm an advocate for honors education, first and foremost, at the national level, especially in public universities. And so just as a little side point, the director of our our Chicano Programs Office is also an honors faculty fellow. And her and I were comparing notes, and first generation college student from California as well. And she spent a year or a couple of years at a private liberal arts college on the East Coast as part of her post-bachelor's work. And when I was working on my PhD, I took a gap year, a leave of absence, to go work at a national liberal arts college in some other place, right? We won't name them. They were both top 20 national liberal arts colleges. And I went exactly because I didn't know what that world was. And I had read about transformative learning and the special communities. So I went to go see what it's all about. I loved it. And our Chicano programs director said, wow, what a neat experience. But we both were just struck by the level of resource and privilege and the level of taken for grantedness of the students. It was an incredible educational opportunity for the students that were at this private school that I was at. I just checked this morning, $60,000 is the standard tuition, okay, for 1 year. Great education. Honors education at our public universities can be just as good. And that's what's so cool about this, is that if I have a student looking at that school or looking at some other very prestigious university in some other place, and a student saying, or a parent, because I chat with lots of parents, right? What's best for my child? You look at what depends on the child, depends whenever. But don't be thinking that if you come to NMSU, that your child isn't going to have every bit of an exceptional educational opportunity that they will at these other places. And one of my missions, one of my goals is to create the structures that makes that happen. So when I was at this liberal arts college, the school had 1,200 students, the town had 1,200 students, okay? So every student wanted to study abroad at least once because they had to get out of the town, they had to get away from the college. They loved it, but they just needed the break, right? That's not a normal expectation for students at New Mexico State University or any state university, but it will be for honor students. Even as I'm recruiting, I'm telling them, you are going to study abroad. You are going to, it will be transformative. We're a land grant university on the borderlands area where intercultural competence matters and where you need to see the significance of issues, not just from a state level or from a national level, but across borders and around the world. You're going to study abroad. And the thing is, I'm bugging them from the time that I'm recruiting them.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now that you track the students that I recruit this year, 4 years out, I'm betting 50% or more will have spent an international for credit experience. And that's not everybody, because lots of reasons the student might not do it. But 50%. Nationally, it's just a couple percent that students study abroad. At private liberal arts colleges, most students do.
Right.
Honors will do the same. We will support, provide, encourage. All of our students will work with the faculty member on a research, scholarship, creative project. They just will. And if we do those things, then our state universities are providing the caliber and quality of opportunity for students that you get at the places that you and I never could have imagined going. And we can do that here. And then we'll send them off to that other fancy place. But we're exceptional universities. And when we can connect students to the best of our opportunities and resources and help them, facilitate it, make it normal. By the end, one of the new things we'll be doing this next year is running an honors first year seminar. I will be running the seminar. I will facilitate it. So that by the end of that semester, every student will know how to study abroad. Every student will know how it's funded. Every student will know the opportunities. They will have visited multiple research labs. They will have met multiple possible mentors and mentors who will be there. We're going to make sure from the very start, we're going to raise the bar of expectations. First, I got to find the right students who fit the profile, who are either academically capable and documented, I have high academic ability. Those are the easy ones. The harder ones is, how do we find the students that have academic potential, but have not yet had someone tap them on the shoulder? And that's what I'm working on. And I'm determined.
Those unrealized promises that are out there. I don't know where I heard it last week somewhere, and I just thought that's kind of a powerful statement, an unrealized promise. And I appreciate that you're doing both sides of that equation, because you're right. The front end of that equation is easy. It's the back end that's more difficult. And I think that just yesterday, Professor Montoya, who, if you want to hear another great, phenomenal woman in history, she's like your mentor there. Just an amazing woman. I mean, she really stopped me in my tracks yesterday, and I just thought it's really something we should all think about more. How do we find those who have that unrealized potential, and they just need, as you said, Phame, they just need the tap on the shoulder. I mean, every day we should make it our mission to tap someone on the shoulder and give them that support, provision, and encouragement. You know, you said support, provide, and encourage. And I just think, you know, you're saying some really powerful stuff. I hope that people are hearing you.
Well, and Brian, you know, one of the challenges is that I know that I'm not going to get everybody coming into the university on the front end, right? And so I am reaching out with admissions and just to make sure students know that we're here to say, look, if this sounds like you, we're here. And by the way, you don't have the GPA according to the policy, which I didn't write. It says you can petition the dean. Well, I'm the dean. Petition me. For goodness sakes, if this is who you think you are, and I haven't found you yet, then you tell me this is who you are. And yes, I will welcome you into the program, and I will be there for you for the next 4 years. But even after students are here, right now we're turning to our current students and we're saying, we just did a survey of all of our Crimson Scholars, and Crimson Scholars are, think of them as being on the honors dean's list, right? So they're 3.5 GPA. We're acknowledging their excellent work on campus. That doesn't mean they all want to do honors programming or other kinds of things, but they're there and they're eligible to take advantage of anything. By the way, anyone who wants to just petitions me. I'm happy to. I am there for you, right? But we did a survey of those students and we asked them all kinds of things, including how COVID impacted their educational experience and their future plans, but also about the values that matter to them and what they want to do, right? And I was so thrilled to see that when we asked about the values that matter to you, things like high income, prestige, making a difference in the world for good, using my talents for good, finding a career or work that I can be passionate about is number one. Finding work that I can be passionate about. 85% of the students, it's like 450 students, gave it a 7 out of a 7 on a 7-point scale, said that was the thing that really mattered to them. So now as I'm going back to them and saying, hey, if you said that passion is what you're trying to do, and you've acknowledged that you need more guidance, we're here for you. We're here for you. And if that's not you, and you're saying, no, I wanted financial security and stability, and I'm on a good major plan, and I'm doing good, and then maybe I'm not going to be as important for your efforts and your initiative. And we're tracking our data by whether they're first gen, whether they identify, whether they're Latinx, whether they're other identities, how income, whether they're Pell eligible. And we're trying to triangulate who these students are, independent of those things. The students that want to aim high and achieve more meaningfully, now I can reach out to them and say, we're here for you. So for the next couple of weeks, I will be having evening sit-down chats, outdoors with coffee if people want to do that, or Zoom chats, and just meeting with students and saying, we're here for you. Let's talk about honors. How can we help you? And even if they don't do the program, the academic program parts, I'm hoping that we're that tap on the shoulder, that we're saying, please keep on aiming high. Don't give up on those passions. And even though COVID did throw you for a curve, and most students, by the way, said that it did take a toll on their education, like their immediate education, but that it did not change their professional goals or educational futures. So I try to recruit students to the university with this notion of we can transform your life, and especially those that don't yet quite realize what that even means. But then once students are here, we are trying to make it possible for them to identify and again provide opportunity to say it's not too late. This is who you are. We can help you. And our program is very inclusive and very open. We try to limit barriers so that students can participate, and knowing that people participate at different levels.
I love that. There are a lot of honors colleges in New Mexico, and you've named several of your peers and your colleagues, but there's only one that sits under the Organ Mountains, and that's pretty spectacular, and it's yours at the Conroy Building. Let me ask you this, something that's important to me, and that, of course, we're all thinking about a little bit more, I think, especially now with the trial that just began and the jury selection that just began regarding the murder of George Floyd. We're all thinking, I think, a little more intentionally about as you mentioned, inclusivity and diversity. How is that something? Tell me about your efforts in that regard, your intentionality as you approach and lead the Honors College. And you've only been there for 10 months, so I get it, or 9 months, just long enough to have a baby. Tell us about your thoughts about that diversity and inclusion piece that we're all kind of using the buzzwords about, but real lives are impacted by whether or not we're intentional about those buzzwords.
No, hey, let me go back to the word equity even first, right? Because I want to go back to why I do honors, right? Remember, I was saying that I loved my private liberal arts college experience and thought, wow, what a neat place to be. I was never quite comfortable. I never quite fit. By the way, so I have a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD. The last graduation ceremony I went through was my high school ceremony. I've always been a little alienated from the institution. It's never quite felt like home to me because I'm always, with that background, it always just feels a little privileged. It always feels a little bit like, I don't know that that's me. And I'm the dean, by the way. So you got to give me credit for this, right? In terms of I can play the game on the inside. I think we can make a difference for good. But my experience at that liberal arts college really got me thinking about equity in terms of opportunity, right? How do we think about who the best of higher education is for, which then goes back to inclusion and diversity. And my coming to NMSU was exactly because I saw the potential here to be much more intentional about inclusion, the notion of making an equitable opportunity for students that didn't have the same opportunities. And again, I know that my TRIO program on the entry is going to focus on getting students admitted and working on. But again, we don't want to assume that all first generation college students are not academically capable and strong. We don't want to assume that a student of color is not academically talented, right? We have to be careful about those. And what I see in honors education at the national level is often a focus on deficits, right? Or at universities at a national level. Again, your story about coming to the university, all right, there were some challenges, but they also made you resilient. They also reflect grit. They also say something about you as a potential learner and a potential change agent for the future. So to me, honors is about equity, and it should be focused on inclusion. How do we get these students into the system? How do we make it so that it's a home for them? And that's where partnering with my other diversity offices will be important as we're working on how do we kind of navigate that world. But from admissions through graduation, that's what part of what makes NMSU so special. Land grant, focus on service, social mobility, gives me permission and encouragement. And I can be honest that I would not have taken this position if the senior leadership above me had not assured me that I had permission and encouragement to start reaching out, to do what we can to be more intentional, to use our resources. By the way, one of the service projects that I'd like to work on over the next year, we've just done some of the initial work. I'm going to start reaching out to regional schools and places that don't have gifted and talented programs in their middle schools and high schools. What can honors do to go out and serve? Merrick Garland was just appointed the other day, right? And I remember when he was up for his earlier court appointment many years ago, and I was reading an article about him, and I was busy and rushed and whatever it was. And I read an article, and he had been tutoring kids in the middle school in the DC area for some number of years every Friday afternoon. And I felt like such a loser. Like, I'm so busy that I can't, it was a slap in the face to say, I need to get out there. So I think by our getting out in the state, by our being clear that we're reaching out to places and people with fewer resources. And so it's not just ethnicity, it's not just race. It really is about opportunity, which is tied to those things. I promise that we're being intentional in developing pipelines and developing the structures. And that's why being here today is also very helpful to me. I want people to know this is what we're about. We're going to help every student we can aim higher and achieve more meaningfully. And it's just an easy way of thinking about it. First, I got to find those students, and I need help with that. I will go anywhere, anytime that COVID permits. I will come to any school. I will be a keynote speaker at any presentation. I will do whatever I can. And if it's not to NMSU, but it helps a student go to some other honors college or program, I can live with that. Of course, I want them to come and join me. And by the way, once students and families meet me as a real person, because I'm committed to helping that student for the next 4 years. Me, not, this is Phame. And I happen to be the dean of the honors college. And I think that if we can do those things and build those connections and personal pipelines, I think we can make a difference, honestly.
I know you can. And I know you probably already are, and you've already seen some of the fruits of your labor. And at a bare minimum, you've planted some seeds that you get to tend in that garden now over the next 4 years for those students you started, or maybe the next decade, because, they could be like me. I was on the tenure track at New Mexico State University, but not for a professorship. It took me 10 years to get my bachelor's degree. So that was the tenure track for me. You're doing good work. And someone texted me, and I knew that I told you I was going to get to this. And as we get ready to land the plane today here on Cafecito con Colon, people want to know if Phame is short for another word or another name. And I will tell you that I got my sword here because your last name, Camarena, is very famous in Toledo and has great and deep origins in Spain. So I'd love for you to speak about your namesake.
Well, so let me just say that first, being here, I love being Camarena. When I was in Michigan, I was Camarena. Oh, I love the Camarena. Thank you.
Imagine being a colon your whole life.
Yeah, thank you. So you have no idea how happy that makes me. So when people ask about my name, just so you know, the last name is a real treat for me too here. But I grew up as Camarena or Camarena, depending upon who I was working with and depending upon the family that I was in contact with, which goes to my first name. Spanish was not my father's first language, and so they did not have bilingual education back then in Central California. He was a migrant farm working family, and so kind of born out in the fields, all that kind of life, right? And so when I was born, my father's life was pretty different, but language had always been a problem for him. And his lack of English skills, he recognized was a challenge. He was marrying a white English-speaking woman, and that created all kinds of other crises for families, and people were disowned, and all kinds of, at the time, all kinds of craziness. So I was the last child, and my father's language had improved. And the story is that he was struck by the idea that PH in English was like an F sound. That didn't really exist in Spanish. So you didn't find PHs back then in Spanish language. And so he went through the dictionary, just looked up words that began with F and put a PH in front of it. And the story, as he said it, was, it's not that I expect you to be famous or that he will be famous, but for the rest of his life, people are going to ask about his name. And he's going to remember his culture, his heritage, and how far you can go in one generation.
Wow. There's the haymaker, folks, right there. That'll knock you out.
Very cool, huh?
That is more than cool. It is super cool. And you're a superhero at New Mexico State University, my alma mater, 1988 to 1998, one of the most important decades of my life, and provided the foundation for me to be able to go to UNM School of Law and follow my dreams. And I've been able to do that. And New Mexico State University will always be an important part of that story, whether it was Dean Frankie Clemens at the business school, or Barbara or Mark, or all the great leaders, of course, Dr. Halligan and Anne, who were always so gracious to me and made me feel special and made me feel that I could get through it. Dr. Conroy and his bride, just beautiful, beautiful leaders. Christina Chavez Kelly, who was assistant to the president back then, who had a very distinguished career at New Mexico State University. In fact, I think I just sent a check to New Mexico State University because she set up a scholarship down there. So Christina, if you're watching today, love you very much. Thanks for making a difference in my life. And I hope you got to learn a little bit about this new superstar of New Mexico State University during the time of COVID. Wait till he gets to spread his wings post-COVID. May 31st is going to be right around the corner. We'll all be vaccinated, I'm convinced. And we will be able to return to seeing one another face to face. But you are always welcome in my world. Whatever I can do to support you on your journey, Phame, you can count on the answer being yes. And what else can I do?
Thank you.
A yes and kind of person. And yes, I'm a graduate of New Mexico State University, and I'm grateful for your leadership at the Honors College. I'll let you have the last word as we finish for the day here on Cafecito con Colon.
Thank you, Brian. And again, I will remind everybody, I'm not even going to put it in the chat, but my email is phame@nmsu.edu. How hard can that be to remember? Phame@nmsu.edu with a PH. I really am here to serve the state of New Mexico by serving New Mexico State University. This is going to be my last professional career position. Yes, it's a 10-year plan. I am determined to make a difference on this institution and to help transform students' lives. I got the best job on this campus, and I am here for anybody that wants to be a part of that. And if I can provide service to you, please don't hesitate to track me down. And Brian, thank you so much for letting me be here today. Thank you.
It was my honor and privilege. And with that, we're going to wrap up another episode of Cafecito con Colon. Mañana we'll have another doctora, I think. Oh, you know what? Tomorrow is our Friday already. I can't believe it's Friday already. We'll be working with Enlace New Mexico and the New Mexico Hispanic Heritage Committee to bring you another spotlight of some amazing Hispanic women leaders during this Women's History Month. So thank you, Phame, Dr. Camarena. Thank you for leading. Thank you for wanting to walk around the campus and look around New Mexico and tap students on the shoulder and say, yes, you should be looking at the Honors College. Keep on making a difference. Call me anytime. I'm in your corner, Phame. Bye-bye now.